I love Anchor, and I'm convinced you will too. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast, and it's free. And that's a good thing. And you know what? Anchor will distribute your podcast to the right kinds of places, Spotify, Apple. And this is just a great thing. If you want to get started in podcasting and get yourself out there, what you want to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Ahmaud was my baby boy. I had him on Mother's Day back in 1994.
Oh, wow.
On Mother's Day, yeah. And Ahmaud was the baby. He has an older sister and an older brother. But Ahmaud was his brother and sister's keeper. He loved his family. And I know he loved his mama. He had the most humble spirit. He liked sports. He loved LeBron James. He loved LeBron. He loved Kobe. He loved football. But then the last, I would say, since he's been an adult, I think you hear me say thank you all the time because those were his words. If you did anything for Ahmaud, it was always thank you.
He was just a gracious guy.
Yes, he was. And if he left the room, or if I leave home, he's leaving the house, it's always I love you. Mm. Those were his words. And his spirit was just so humble, and he just didn't deserve to go like he went.
What words are there? What words are there to comfort Wanda Cooper? To comfort the voice you just heard. The mother of Ahmaud Arbery, speaking to the activist Sean King on his podcast. Ahmaud Arbery was jogging, just minding his own business, back on February the 23rd of this year. Minding his own business. In South Georgia, here in the United States. He was just jogging, and he was murdered in cold blood by two white men, father and son. In America, this happens daily. One of the things we can start to do is to help the mother of Ahmaud Arbery. What I recommend is that you go to this website right now. Run with M as in Mike, AUD.com. That's run, RUN, with, WITH, Maud, M as in Mike, AUD.com. Sign the petition and make some phone calls. We must help this family. I'm Omar Moore. Welcome to the Politicrat. On this Wednesday, May the 6th, 2020. Ahmaud Arbery was killed on February 23rd, more than 2 months ago. He was killed on the Sunday that was closest to the 8-year anniversary of the killing of Trayvon Martin. The circumstances are very similar indeed. And I do not think that there's necessarily just a coincidence here. Trayvon Martin was tracked down and murdered by George Zimmerman, who didn't have to go to jail. He was not jailed for this. He didn't have to pay any price. He didn't pay a price. He should have paid a price. And he did not. And for the last 2+ months, 2 white men have been roaming free without consequence. One of them has long-standing ties to law enforcement, was very much a part of law enforcement in Glynn County in South Georgia, had been an investigator in the district attorney's office there for many years. He only retired recently, and his son, who had the gun and who executed Ahmaud Arbery, was there with him, chasing down a young man who was jogging, a young black man jogging in broad daylight at 1 p.m. on Sunday afternoon in a neighborhood. This has the same earmarks as the brutal murder of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, by the white male cop Darren, whatever his last name was. When he was left, Michael Brown, left in the street, bleeding to death, in the middle of the road in broad daylight, on a Saturday in August, back in 2014. Georgia must get involved immediately, and they must arrest these 2 men, at minimum, maybe 3 white men who were involved. One driving the truck, taking the video of this murder, which I refuse to watch. I'm fed up of watching videos of black people being murdered by police officers white police officers in the main, white people. I'm fed up of watching videos. We need justice. We need people to act. We need action.
What you have was three Southern Georgian white citizens who essentially put together a posse and lynched a young man in broad daylight. Ahmaud Arbery, by all accounts, even those of his accusers, was seen running down the road. He was wearing sneakers and exercise gear. He was not carrying any firearms, or he wasn't carrying any stolen material. The worst that could be said about him was that he stopped at a home that was under construction and that he allegedly looked in through the window before carrying on his job. The reason that we have not seen an indictment, in my opinion, is because these men were white. These men have strong law enforcement ties. The father, Gregory McMichael, being law enforcement for 30 years, specifically working in the district attorney's office, who would have been responsible for arresting these men. That DA recused herself. It passed over to the next county.
You are already seeing a cover-up. The voice you just heard was of the Arbery family attorney, Lee Merritt. That name may be familiar to some of you because Lee Merritt was the family attorney for the family of Botham Jean. Botham Jean was murdered in 2018 by a white female police officer in Texas. Dallas may have been the city that took place in. Amber Geiger was the police officer, and she went into Botham Jean's apartment and executed him. She got a total of 10 years in prison, which she is not likely to serve much of at all. When all is said and done, she may spend between 6 months to 1 year in prison, and at the very most, 5 years of that 10-year sentence, for what amounted to a cold-blooded murder. Ahmaud Arbery had every right to live. Ahmaud Arbery should still be here today. Never mind the fact that he was an all-American athlete. Never mind the fact that he was a good person. Never mind the fact that he was a great, gentle spirit. It wouldn't have mattered if he wasn't any of those things. He has the right to live. He had the right to live. To jog, to walk, to breathe. To be himself in America. But the thing about America is that when you are black, it is very clear from the very start that the society around you, the white society, the racist society you live in, the systemic racism that engulfs you, tells you that you have no right to live, that you have no right to exist. That is a reality that black people in the United States of America and beyond face and experience every single day of their lives. That is a reality that I face as a black man every single day of my life. Ahmaud Arbery was murdered more than 2 months ago, and his killers, clearly seen on a video that I won't ever watch, because why do I need to watch that? I am very familiar with black people being murdered, and I'm very familiar with video capturing us being murdered. And I'm very familiar with the people who murder us, not so much as being even arrested for the murders, let alone getting a day in court or being acquitted. That father and son team, or I call them the tag team murderers, are still at large. They are still without arrest, as you heard from the attorney there, Lee Merritt. They do not have to have a grand jury under Georgia law to arrest these guys. There is no requirement in Georgia law that there has to be a grand jury convened before these two, at least two of these individuals, the father and son McMichaels, the McMichael tandem, be arrested. They can be arrested right now. They could have been arrested on the 23rd of February of this year. This is now May the 6th. More than 2 months later. 2.5 months later. I know this much. And I'll tell you something for nothing. If there was video of 2 black men with guns shooting and executing a white male jogger, Georgia or any other state would have had those 2 black men arrested and jailed immediately. They would have been killed. Let alone arrested. Welcome back to the Politicrat. I want to say to the person who leaked this very graphic video. Now, again, I have not watched it, but I want to say that whoever leaked that, thank you for doing it. Wanda Jones has not looked at this video. Wanda Jones is the mother of Ahmaud Arbery. I've seen her also acknowledged as Wanda Cooper. But the bottom line is that she has not watched this video yet, according to numerous interviews that I have been reading. There's no need for any black person to be watching this video. But for those of you who have watched this video, whether you're black, whether you're white, Asian, Latinx, whomever you may be around the world who have watched this 36-second video, understand that this happens daily. And many of us are being killed like this all over the country, whether it be by police officers, whether it be by these racist mobs, these white people, these white men who operate on white privilege and institutional racism that protects them, a system that protects them. 2 previous prosecutors recused themselves from this case. 2. The 3rd prosecutor says that there will be a grand jury to bring charges in this killing. Well, why wasn't there a grand jury in February? There was no lockdown of the state of Georgia in February due to the pandemic. There still wasn't any lockdown of any state on February 23rd or 24th or 25th. It was only in early March where states began to lock down. In fact, the first of those was this state here, California, early in March, where the governor here did that. So my question to the county down there in Georgia, Glynn County, to the district attorney there now, is why now are you finally doing this grand jury? Well, I can actually answer that question. It's because somebody, whomever it was, either at a local radio station or somewhere, put this video on the radio station's air and on social media. And that's how this video got to see the light of day. The prosecutor actually had this video in his possession. In fact, the previous 2 prosecutors down in Glynn County in South Georgia had this video in their possession. And they sat on this video for more than 2 months. And I don't know how this individual got it, whether the person who leaked it was actually in the district attorney's office there or knew someone there or whatever it was. It really doesn't matter at this point. What matters is that they did the right thing and leaked this video. Whether I watch it or not, whether some of you watch it or not, it's out there for the world to see. And now we must have justice. It's that simple. Justice is required here. And we know what the chances and the odds are that any black person gets justice when they are murdered by a white person, particularly a white man in this country. And the chances of that diminish even more when it is a white man tied to law enforcement, as at least one of these individuals is. This smacks of a really very, very bad situation of cover-up. That's what this smacks of so far. Not only could there have been a grand jury in February, soon after this murder happened, there could have been an arrest immediately after this happened. And as I've said, Georgia law does not require that there be a grand jury in place in order to corral anybody accused of a crime, particularly when it comes to murder. There is no excuse for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. He was jogging and minding his own business. It doesn't matter that he stopped to take a look at a construction site or constructed home. It doesn't matter. There is no justification for taking someone's life. Ahmaud Arbery was unarmed. He was jogging. And these white men set upon him like a pack of wolves. They drove up to him. They blocked him, from what I understand. They had their guns out, from what I'm reading. They came up to him, and he had no time. He had to try to get away. And he struggled with the gunman, who had aggressively come up to him, threatened him, from what I understand. The video is graphic from what I know. People who have seen this video have said that it is extremely graphic and disturbing to watch. And this killing has been roundly condemned by everybody on social media, pretty much, that I have seen, including people in the public eye. Politicians. Senator Kamala Harris was amongst the earliest to condemn this execution of a young man named Ahmaud Arbery. Congresswoman Lucy McBath, who knows a thing or two about loss, her son Jordan Davis was murdered in cold blood several years ago in Florida, in Jacksonville, as a matter of fact. And her grief continues. Jordan Davis was murdered by a white man named Michael Dunn. Jordan Davis was sitting in a car at a gas station, and Michael Dunn thought that it would be a good idea to shoot 18 times into a car that Jordan Davis was sitting in. Lucy McBath, the congresswoman, condemned this murder. The presumptive Democratic presidential nominee, Joe Biden, last night on Twitter condemned this murder and called for swift justice. He said that it was a murder in cold blood. And I agree. I don't have to see the video to know that. There have been too many murders of black people in this country. And it is way past time for these state-sanctioned executions, for these murderous white male mobs to end their violence. And I think that what white people of good conscience must do is go back to their communities and tell violent white people to end their violence, to end white violence. One of the best things that any white person can do is develop campaigns around white people ending white violence. If you are white and you say that you are anti-racist, you must stand up against white violence and against racism. And you must help this family who now is without their 25-year-old, a mother who is without her son, a mother who gave birth to Ahmaud Arbery on Mother's Day in 1994. As I have said several times in various episodes of this podcast, we are going through this coronavirus pandemic. But we really aren't going through it together. I used to think that we were going through it together. I said that we were going through it together, but that we're going through it differently. But I don't even think we're going through it together. I think we're going through it very separately. We are going through this pandemic in very different worlds. There is the world of reopening and getting back out there on your bike and getting back to work. And then there's the world of continued death in mostly and overwhelmingly black communities, in overwhelmingly brown communities, in overwhelmingly Native American communities, disruptions in overwhelmingly Asian communities. Those are the worlds that are experiencing this pandemic very differently indeed. Different worlds in the same country. I didn't mention a word about coronavirus when I began this episode. But as I will say now, the murders of black people pre-existed this pandemic. And sadly and truthfully, the murders of black people will survive and continue long after this pandemic is over, unless we choose to do something about it. The road to justice for Ahmaud Arbery and his family begins right now. Go to the website right now runwithmaud.com. That's RUNWITHM as in Mike, AUD.com. When you get to that website page, please sign the petition that you will see there. And please also make phone calls. You will see the area on that same page that asks you to make phone calls. Please do so. If you've had enough of death, if you've had enough of human beings being murdered in this country, if you've had enough of anybody being killed in this country, and in this case, a young black man minding his own business, killed for existing just in broad daylight. People must have seen this happen beyond a video capturing it. Surely there were witnesses. An investigation must happen, but these men must be thrown in jail right now. So when you are finished watching yet another video that re-traumatizes black people everywhere and maybe traumatizes you, go to runwithmaud.com and let's get to advocating for this family of Ahmaud Arbery.
Ahmaud was my baby boy. I had him on Mother's Day back in 1994.
Oh, wow.
On Mother's Day, yeah. And Ahmaud was the baby. He has an older sister and an older brother. But Ahmaud was his brother and sister's keeper. He loved his family. And I know he loved his mama. He had the most humble spirit. He liked sports. He loved LeBron James. He loved LeBron. He loved Kobe. He loved football. But then the last, I would say, since he's been an adult, I think you hear me say thank you all the time because those were his words. If you did anything for Ahmaud, it was always thank you.
He was just a gracious guy.
Yes, he was. And if he left the room, or if I leave home, he's leaving the house, it's always I love you. Mm-hmm. Those were his words. And his spirit was just so humble, and he just didn't deserve to go like he went.